place of his birth. Thank you for that very nice welcome. I'd like to introduce my wife, Carol, standing over here. And our granddaughter, Lindy, is with us today, one of our 18 granddaughters. Well, somebody told me there was a little bit of competition tonight, and maybe nobody would show up. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you for coming. But we're correct. The cause of liberty will be remembered for a long time, and the ball game will be forgotten. Well, this is very nice, and of course you know that reception has been excellent and across the country, and on the colleges in particular. But every once in a while we come up short on the coverage. You know, evening news doesn't seem to cover what we're doing. And when they do, they come up with headlines. Where's Ron Paul? What is he doing? What's he doing these days?
Starting a revolution!
Where's the media? That's what we want to know. Eventually, they must hear from us because we cannot continue with what we have today. I think this is why the country is so different from 4 years ago. We were in a campaign 4 years ago, and I considered it very successful. But there's a dramatic difference between now, today, and 4 years ago. 4 years ago, there were not that many people who had an interest in the Federal Reserve. Today, it's a really big issue. For the first time in the history of the Federal Reserve, monetary policy in the Federal Reserve is one of the big issues of the campaign.
Woo! The Fed, and the Fed. And the Fed, and the Fed, and the Fed.
That sounds like a very good idea. I propose next year, after the election, we pass a bill that repeals the Federal Reserve Act.
Woo!
Surely if that isn't done immediately, what has to be done immediately in the country now is very much with us. Let's get a full audit of the Federal Reserve and find out what they've been doing with our money.
Yeah!
The Federal Reserve has been operating in secret for a long time. Of course, I can understand why they would want to when you find out what they're up to. But they would like to continue to operate in secret because I think they do know deep down in their hearts, the people that are in charge, it's a totally unconstitutional organization. There's no authority in the Constitution for a central bank. And Congress has a responsibility of oversight of those creatures that they bring about. So oversight is a natural thing that we should have. What we need is a lot more transparency of the government and a lot less of the invasion of our privacy. Prices. Well, they haven't been doing so well, and as years go on, it gets worse. They're down to a 2-cent dollar compared to the dollar of 1913 that they were entrusted to. So the unemployment rate, when you look at it honestly, is closer to 20% than the 7 or 8 or 9% that they claim. There's no such thing that we've experienced for a long, long time with stable prices. So I would give the Federal Reserve a very, very low grade. I would think, I don't know whether it's an F or an F minus, but it's very, The one thing that we have to understand about monetary policy is if we oppose big government, which I'm assuming that just about everybody in this audience is opposing big government. It's been doing for so long is always at the expense of liberty. So if you advocate big government, you always have to sacrifice some portion of our personal liberty. So this is the reason that if once you come around to endorsing the basic principle of liberty, you have to be in opposition, to big government and the financing of big government through the Federal Reserve System. What would happen if you didn't have the Federal Reserve to facilitate big government is the government would have to pay their bills. And if they didn't have enough taxation, they would have to borrow the money. But if you didn't have the Fed to buy the debt, then it would stop, because if they were spending too much, interest rates would go up and they would recognize that we can't afford it. The fact that you can borrow, and we have been sort of given the blessing of a reserve currency, it has allowed this borrowing to go on too long and the inflation to go on too long. But what has happened in these last 4 years is that the attitude has changed. The people are waking up in two areas. The economic crisis has hit. People know that we're not going to come flying out of this, that we have to have structural changes, and they're also fed up with our foreign policy, and they want our troops to come home. Especially in Washington, if you don't support the war by voting for the spending, they want to paint you as being un-American, unpatriotic, and not caring about the troops. If they ever say that to you, ask them why the active military personnel donates more money to our campaign than all the other campaigns.